In 2018-19, that school year, I was a math teacher. I taught 6 math classes a day, but I would still sneak a fire story in there ever so often, because kids would find out that I had fought fire in the West, and they're like, hey, tell us a fire story. And so I was like, but we're supposed to be like factoring polynomials, guys. We can't, okay, I'll tell a fire story. But then I thought, well, there's interest there. Why not have an official gathering of this is where we talk about fire? What started as a club in 2018-19 is now actually like a local prescribed burn resource. Community folks call the high school when they need consultation or capacity to do a burn on their property.
Okay, I'm gonna admit, I was horrified at first. I was like, you're gonna burn the mountain? No, all the trees will go away. Some people call this the jewel of Kingsport. And it truly is. You can have animal habitats, you can have a planetarium, you can have hiking trails, you can have biking trails, just about anywhere. You cannot have a Bays Mountain anywhere.
In that historical research, we've learned stories about families up here and funny things and sad things that have happened up here, and we now can point to the houses where that happened.
This is not just a recreational area. This was where people lived and died and raised families.
There was a community up here, and my family was part of that community. In fact, my great-grandmother was the teacher at the one-room schoolhouse that was up here on this mountain. My great-grandfather helped build the dam that made the reservoir. They were stewards of this mountain and this land in their own way, and of these people up here. And to think that now I get to do that 100 years later in my own new way, being a steward of the land, but also I'm teaching kids up here too. So there's still a classroom up here. It's just out in the woods now, and it's not a one-room schoolhouse down at the foot. We're on top of River Mountain, actually. It's part of Bays Mountain Park. This is a south-facing slope. Those are typically fire-adapted ecosystems on those south-facing slopes here in Appalachia. And so we chose this south-facing slope to start putting fire back on the ground and in the management plan up here at Bays Mountain Park. From here to our east is our burn unit, our very first burn unit ever at Bays Mountain Park, at least management-wise. I know fire was up here for hundreds of years, if not longer, before we started managing it as a park. But now, in April of 2025, we put fire back on the ground.
Sometimes people have ideas in their mind that, oh, a prescribed burn is going to cause a lot of destruction. But when a prescribed burn is done in a controlled environment, that's not necessarily the case. And so a lot of education went into educating our public about the effects of a prescribed burn on the environment here at Bays Mountain Park.
I was one of the students that participated in the burn. I stayed more up top. My friend Jace, he stayed up here as well with me. We stayed along this ridge the whole time and went down and met at the bottom. And throughout that, we kept a look and made sure everything didn't cross over.
You know, it was a great experience as well up here, and it's something that nobody's ever thought about for many years. This is a really great park. We don't want to mess with it. But as soon as we put fire into it, we can see that there's so many more, oaks that are growing, and maples have just kind of gone down a little bit.
There's blueberries coming back. I've never seen a blueberry on this mountain before, which I think is awesome. So to me, it's like we're seeing it happen. And I mean, that's cool. The other thing is mitigating a wildfire. I don't want to see this mountain burn to nothing. And if we can help that by doing these controlled burns and, you know, really taking care of it, that's way better than a wildfire.
I think most people in general, you know, with Smokey the Bear and everything, they thought the fire was a really bad thing.
Because when Smokey Bear came on the scene, it was all fire is bad. Stop it by 10 a.m. every day. That was the Forest Service's mandate. But if you zoom out 200 years, we take fire out, and what you're enjoying won't be here 200 years from now because you did take fire out of the equation. So fire is a long game. My great-grandparents burned. They burned up here on this mountain. I know they burned in the valleys. And then, you know, now we're starting to put fire back in the equation. So there was a generation there that kind of grew up with, oh, all fire's bad. Why would you ever set your field on fire? But now I think we're starting to get that message out, that good fire message out there, that, you know, fire is the original management tool. Before bush hogs and diesel fuel and internal combustion motors and herbicide and weed eaters, we had fire.
Okay, copy. Yeah, we'll bring the ranger down there and we'll have some water for you.
Alrighty, send it.
Used to, I didn't know who I was ever gonna be. But now it just seems like that now I'm in this kind of ecosystem, this fire, this community. It's just a wonderful place to be in.
But it's just getting kids up here, because most of these kids come up here and they stop at the parking lot and they go into the planetarium and they see the wolves, and then they get back on the school bus and go back to elementary school. They've done that for years. But none of the students that I brought up here in April had ever stood right there. And we spent all day right there. And now they're back up here today looking and seeing, oh man, check this out. Look at that mushroom. Look at these oaks popping up. Look at this, all the change that's happened just because of that fire. So just to get kids back up on this mountain and start to kind of promote that next generation of stewardship of this mountain. And off the sides of this mountain and into this region and in Appalachia and in our communities, it's just a big job, and it's just fun to see. It all started down there in that one-room schoolhouse for me, and now it's kind of growing and hopefully transitioning off this mountain too.